welcome to the magic world of Madison Square Garden Center.
Today in the Vault, players from the New York Islanders will see something that they haven't since the moment they lived it in 1975. That was the year the Islanders stunned the Rangers in overtime. That was the year they came back from a 3-0 deficit to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had Vic Hatfield, Pierre LaRouche, and Colin Campbell in their locker room. Clark Gillies remembers. So does J.P. Parisi. And Glenn Chico Resch does a retro broadcast of one of the best times of his life. This is The Vault, where we've uncovered 1975, the comeback. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Vault. I'm Al Trautwig. The Islanders, as we now know them, are a few pieces away from taking the next crucial step to playoff believability. In 1975, that's exactly where the Islanders were then. They had a coach who was about to become a legend, but in 1975, Al Arbour was not yet a legend. But by the time the 1975 season was done, he was on the verge. They were on the cusp of greatness. J.P. Parisi will join us shortly. He scored a goal that only young players could dream of. So few have been scored in the history of the Stanley Cup. Along the way, we would watch players like Glenn Chico Resch have his name chanted at the Nassau Coliseum. He would become almost an overnight sensation. And there was a young Clark Gillies, a rookie on the 1975 Islanders, who would eventually become captain and one of the great players in the history of the franchise. Our story today in 1975, with the little video that we've uncovered, begins with a famous franchise history handshake in the history of the New York Rangers.
And here's the traditional lineup. I don't know of any other sport that it's done in, but it's always done in Stanley Cup competition. There goes Emil Francis to Al Arbour, congratulating Al Arbour.
But to get to those handshakes that the New York Rangers absolutely hated, the Islanders had to score one of the great goals in the history of the franchise, or J.P. Parisi had to score one of the great goals in the history of franchise. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
What is your memory of that 11 seconds?
Well, I think that Jude and I and Eddie Westfall were the starting line, and then Jude got the face-off to our D, Dave Lewis. Mm-hmm. And I think they went D to D, and he crossed over the red line. The defenseman crossed over the red line, dumped it in the corner, and for some reason, one of the New York Rangers never picked it up. And Jude went and picked up the puck and passed it to me in front of the net, and I could not believe what was happening. All of a sudden, I got the open net, and the game was over.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Have you ever seen it since the moment you lived it?
I've never seen it. I saw the picture, but not the actual in motion.
Okay, let's go down a fabulous memory lane. JP, watch your game-winning goal.
Oh my goodness. I fell in the back of my head.
Is that pretty much how you remember it?
That's all I can remember, yeah.
You make that sharp right turn. It's as if there's some instinct in you that said, I have to get to the front of the net. And there's something about Jude Drouin, and you almost became Islanders together, that told him to put the puck there.
It was unbelievable. Usually, we had a play. Like, if something like that would happen, is that I would go in the far corner, and Jude would just tap the puck, bank it off the wall, and pass it back to me in the corner. And for some reason, the puck was there, and I never went in the corner. I went to the net, and it was just like, all of a sudden, the puck was I was wide open.
Now, did you understand what it meant for the Islanders 3 years into their existence to do this to the New York Rangers?
I have to tell you that the first time I even played against the New York Rangers, we were skating around the pregame skate, and some fan leaned over the glass and told me things I didn't know existed. I mean, it was unbelievable. Swore and cursed at me words that I had never heard before. And all of a sudden I realized, boy, this is a tremendous rivalry here.
So when you came to the Islanders, did you have a sense of what kind of team it was or could be one day?
Not really, because the Islanders had had such a poor showing in the years before. They were always out of the playoffs. As a matter of fact, when I was told I was coming here, I was totally disappointed because I was getting a little older, and as a player, you want to retire with a Stanley Cup. And in my mind, being traded to the New York Islanders, I said, my dreams of winning a Stanley Cup are just not happening. And I didn't know what kind of a team they had, and except when I...
So flash forward now to a team that's shaking hands.
Oh my gosh! All of a sudden, I came here, and then you look around, and all the good players that were coming, and it was competitive, and it was fun, and kids liked to play and work, and it was just like a new career for me, and of course for Jude. So it was just like a new life. It was awesome.
1975 was a building block for a Stanley Cup dynasty. The Islanders, though, were just getting started in the 1975 playoffs. But to get to that point where they were able to beat the New York Rangers, the acquisition of J.P. Parise and Jude Drouin were a major part of that. Here's how the Islanders remember how important that was.
We made a trade and got Jude Drouin and J.P. Parise from Minnesota. And they made a significant difference in our team.
Those two guys brought an element to our team that just wasn't there. Jude was very skilled, and JP was sort of a father-like figure, terrific in the corner, bull kind of worker, go to the net, JP, all that stuff. And it made such a tremendous change to all of us who were the young guys that our first experience in the playoffs, we felt pretty comfortable.
We are back in the vault with J.P. Parise, whose goal 11 seconds into overtime eliminated the New York Rangers. But now, J.P., you're in a series with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the first 3 games were an absolute disaster. What do you remember about them?
Well, we remember we had them exactly where we wanted them. we were in a bit of trouble. They had a good team, but I don't know that we ever thought of losing. I don't know that it ever crossed our mind. I mean, we had a good bunch of young kids out there who were just going to battle right down to the end, never quit, and I don't know that it ever crossed. We were down. I mean, you can't make any more mistakes. Once you're behind 3-0, you can't make any more major mistakes. Your goaltender has to be good, and now we kind of took a different attitude. It was like next shift. It was after shift, and then it was more than game to game. It was almost shift to shift. And to maintain that for 4 games, it's almost impossible, and we did it.
Looking back on it and reading the newspaper accounts, the 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs almost come up in the conversation immediately after you were down 3-0. Do you remember that?
I was only a year old. I remember, someone mentioning that, but I don't know that it was a big factor. All we were caring about is that we could win 4 games in a row. I mean, we had done it before, and we knew that we could do that, and if things fell into place.
There was a banner, there was a slogan, remember the Leafs. How did it go in French?
Souvenez-vous des Maple Leafs.
And there was a lot of that going on. Now, we've uncovered some footage from something called NHL Action, and I think Marv Albert was the narrator of this. Racket Rink was a place in Farmingdale where you practiced at that time. Yeah. Tell me what Al Arbour practices were like, especially after you lost a game, or 3 in this case.
They were very, he came in, he was very serious. I mean, kind of no nonsense, and it was, he showed all the confidence in the world and belief in us. And he just said, if you don't think that we can, anybody who thinks that we can't come back and beat that team, I want you to leave right away, so, and we're going to go with people who are willing to work and do this. And it was amazing. It was just like a voice that we understood, and we didn't dare disappoint them, but more, it was just a reassurance that we believe in ourselves as something that we could do.
Here's a rare look at what an Islander practice was like right before this team was about to reset history.
Let's bear down. We got maybe another half an hour, so bear down for half an hour and do it right. I want starting off with the defense, 5-on-2, but I want one winger. Say if it's Stewie's line, I want a winger like Howard to take off late here and go back and help. Stay in the middle. Just one guy from each line after. Leave late. After he's made that pass, take off and go and help the defenseman in there.
Five on two. Now there's two of us to try and stop five players, plus Howie. Plus one checker coming back to help us out. Actually, we're doing it 5 on 3. One winger coming back. Keep the position. Now I gotta catch up to him. Come on, legs! Come on! Last time.
What do you think of training now? You like it?
Well, I'm glad it's over with.
JP, those suicide skates must have been awful.
For some reason, Al, every practice, at the end of the practice, he kind of made it unpleasant. And I don't know whether we really wanted to go out. We really started, we liked starting the practices, but those end of the practices were not always that pleasant. It was hard.
When we come back in the vault, the only video that we know exists of what the Islanders did in Game 4. And what they did was begin one of the greatest comebacks in Stanley Cup playoff history. We're back in the vault living in 1975 with a former member of the Islanders, J.P. Parise. So games 1, 2, and 3 against Pittsburgh go badly. Do you remember Al Arbour trying to convey something to the team to execute differently moving on in that series?
Well, first of all, after having told us that if you don't want to play and don't want to compete, go home. And then, you know, Al was way ahead of his time as a coach, and we had different plays, you know, for every team, and all of a sudden we started to forecheck a little differently, and we had to be more physical. They had good players, and they had the LaRouche, the Pronovo, the Apps, all these good players, and we had to be physical, more physical. Make sure we take them out and finish our checks, and avoid making mistakes. And then if we could get good goaltending, we had to have good goaltending for the next 4 games. Then it could be feasible. And again, you know, going one shift at a time, and that's the kind of our motto for 4 games, and we'll maintain that.
We'll have more with J.P. Parise, but we get to Game 4. This is where the comeback and turnaround begins. There's not much. Marv Albert narrates for something called NHL Action.
Pittsburgh goalie Gary Innes has been just sensational so far. But less than 4 minutes into the game, Andre St. Laurent puts New York ahead. The replay shows the slick little center taking his own face-off and firing past Innes to give the Islanders the first lead they've had in any game of this series. In each of the first 3 games in the series with the Penguins, they've spotted Pittsburgh 3 quick goals, but fought back every time to make it close at the end. And they believe it's only a matter of time before they can crack the solid goaltending of Gary Innes, whose dazzling saves have been responsible for preserving Pittsburgh's 3 victories so far. As the first period ends, it will be up to him to keep New York from extending its 1-goal lead. And it will be up to Glenn Resch, the Islander goalie, to keep Pittsburgh's high-scoring team out of his net. This is his first start of the series, and the goalie, who played in a third of his team's games during the regular season, knows the Penguins will be coming at him from here on with everything they've got. And finally, at 8:18 of the second period, left wing Bob Kelly, who got 27 of the Penguins' goals this season, gets their first one of the day as he steers in a hard shot from rookie defenseman Dennis Ochar. The replay shows Kelly and LaRouche trading passes until Kelly winds up alone in front of the net to tie the score at 1-1. There's a lot of pressure on the Islanders now. The Penguins are a team that scores goals in clusters, and they look like they're ready to break loose. This is the point in many hockey games, and especially now in playoff games, when both teams know that a temporary balance has been reached, when their competitive spirits are most challenged, when one team is on the attack and the other must defend against the momentum that a tying goal inevitably produces. But the score remains tied after 2 periods, and each team will have a chance to gather in its thoughts, plan on a strategy going into the final 20 minutes of play, and come out mentally prepared to execute the things it does best. The Islanders came out for the 3rd period determined not to have their season end on this day, and they brought their loyal Nassau Coliseum fans to their feet with a blistering attack worthy of the championship team they're trying so hard to become. And at 6:16 of the period, they pull ahead 2-1 on Clark Gillies' goal. After the replay of that goal, we see how they stormed in to score another one just 39 seconds later.
So that was game 4, but only one. There was more to come, as J.P. Parisi finally remembers. When you guys won game 7, 1-0, do you remember thinking about how great it was?
It was unbelievable. But at the same time, I don't know that we were really surprised. You know, all of a sudden we started to come of age. Our young player, guys like Dennis Wadden, were starting to gain experience. They were getting better. We had Clark Gillies. We had all the guys starting to come along. Bobby Nystrom starting to come along. It was fantastic. It was just one of those things that, gosh, we're becoming a team.
Now, you feel at that point probably like there's some destiny here, like you can go on and win the Stanley Cup. Yet, for whatever reason, momentum doesn't carry over and you lose to 7 games to the Philadelphia Flyers. What did you learn that year about how hard it is to win that trophy?
It is so hard. I still maintain what people may not really know. During the playoffs, we brought up this kid that we had drafted, and he just hung around with us and practiced with us, and I realized what a player this guy is. And it was Bryan Trottier, and he never played him. And I still maintain that if Bryan Trottier would have played against Philly, we had a much better chance to possibly win the Stanley Cup.
JP, considering that you scored the goal to beat the Rangers, and you were part of one of the greatest comebacks in Stanley Cup playoff history, what does 1975 mean to you? Where does it fit into the greatest times of your life?
Probably the best year of my entire NHL career. Wow. And not only scoring the goal, I mean, coming back from the 3-game deficit against all these things. These are, you know, I was never lucky enough to be on a Stanley Cup winner. And there's only, during the time that I was on the National Hockey League, almost 12 years, there were only teams that won the Stanley Cup. There was the Boston Bruins, Philadelphia, and Montreal Canadiens. And so I was never lucky enough to be on one of those teams. And so 1975, the comeback, I guess the goal and all that was basically the highlight of my NHL career.
Fantastic. I will never forget the image of you watching that goal for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's J.P.
My
Parisi
pleasure.
of the New York Islanders. Still to come, Clark Gillies will join us, and Chico Resch is going to be the man when we come back in the Vault. One of the career highlights for Glenn Chico Resch was being in goal for the New York Islanders in the comeback of 1975. And today, for the very first time since he played in Game 5, he will see it. You're down 3-0 to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Derek Sanderson, after you beat the Rangers, said you won't win another playoff game. So set us up for the effect of that.
Well, I mean, it stung a little bit, and J.P. Parisi, as you know, has great sense of humor, and he had the best line. He says, one thing you could tell Derek, we may not win another playoff game, but I know for sure he won't win another game. Because, of course, they were out of the playoffs. And then when it was 0-3, Al, we really didn't know what was going to happen. I just remember Al Arbor called us to a corner of the rink. I can see it as clear as day. He stood on one side, drew a line in the snow after the practice, and said, guys, I'm over here. I believe we can come back. Whoever is going to come with me and believe the same thing, come across this line. Of course, we looked at each other. One guy went, the rest followed. And it was a poignant moment, and I think it really gave us some confidence that maybe we could come back.
It's remembered so fondly for a couple of reasons. One, 0-3 is 0-3. But the Pittsburgh Penguins had a lot more firepower than you guys, right?
Well, they did. They had 9 20-plus goal scorers. We had not beaten them, Al. They'd only lost 6 games the entire season. I had played once in there. I got beat 8-2. So Game 5 that we're going to watch here, and I'm excited to see it, is pivotal because remember, we have not beaten Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh up to this point.
Now, the most excited that our staff at the Vault gets is when they find a tape and put it in a machine and hit play because they're never sure what they're going to find. And in this instance, they found what's left of Game 5. But this tape had no sound. So we add sound effects, we add crowd, and now we're going to add the last thing, and that is the announcers, me and Glenn Chico Resch. Let's put the headsets on and go back to 1975. Second period of Game 5, the Igloo in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Glenn Chico Resch in goal for the Islanders, watching these images for the first time since he played the game, and what does it bring back?
Some butterflies. You know, having lived it, Al, but never seeing it, I wonder what really happened, and we're going to get a look at it.
Big hit in the corner. And Dennis Potvin, number 5, onto the puck for the Islanders. He takes it deep, but turns it over. That may spring the Penguins here.
Well, you see Denny limping on the way back, Al. He had a bad thigh bruise in this series.
Hatfield scores, the ex-Ranger.
Well, he could blast the puck, but that goalie didn't look very good on that one. Of course, remember, Al, there's no butterfly in those days. Everybody's a stand-up. So as Mike Bossy proved over and over again, a shot through the 5-hole just above the stick was a good choice, and Vic Hadfield, one of the greatest scorers, burns me on that one. But you watch Denny coming up late here. You could see he is struggling, but he was such a great offensive threat. We needed him out there anyway.
Emil Francis thought that the Rangers with Vic Hadfield had had their chances at the Cup, and when he thought those chances were done, off went Hadfield.
And he was on the second line, Al. That shows you the firepower the Penguins had.
Nice save there by Chico Resch.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Bert Marshall was a stellar performer. He was a veteran guy. Was a Ranger as well, and the Islanders picked him up, but he was real steady on defense. Well, here was a real energy line, Al. That's Alan St. Laurent over to Bobby Nystrom on the backhand, Gary Howard on the right side. And that line played very, very well. Not only were they tough, but they scored some big goals for us.
It's impossible to miss Nystrom. With the hair, he's all over the ice. Nice stop by Gary Innes, the rookie goaltender that year for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Al, he's not going to get credit for the win in this series, but he was brilliant. I always felt bad, Al. His career never took off after this series, and it was really crushing for him because he had played so well in the first 3 or 4 games.
Well, we're remembering it as an epic achievement. They remember it as an epic fail.
Well, exactly. You know what? It almost bankrupted the franchise. the Pittsburgh Penguins, the seats were broken. There weren't a lot of people coming to the regular season. This was their big chance to solidify the franchise, and at 3-0, it looked like in games, it looked like that's what they would do. And then, as we see here, things starting to fall apart for the Penguins.
A whistle and a penalty is called on number 6, a visibly upset Colin Campbell.
Yes,
Top of the screen.
I wonder if he argued that call. It looked like a pretty good call, but players, no matter how obvious it is, always says the referee got it wrong.
On this Islander power play, the brothers Potvin actually together. That's Jean with the shot. Didn't get through, and he goes cross-ice to his brother Dennis. Now, the leader of this team is Eddie Westfall, correct?
He was our captain, and he's on maybe the big line. You've got Drouin in the middle. You got J.P. Parise on the left, and Eddie Westfall as you see him turn on the right.
Things look a little slow.
Yeah, I was saying, Al, you can see why there weren't many concussions back in those days. No one's traveling fast enough to get their head down. And
nice passing by the Islanders here.
Nice looking power play.
Jude Drouin with the shot. Traffic in front. A big hit, and Eddie Westfall jumps on the loose puck.
Well, Eddie Westfall had a terrific series. And you talk about the speed of this game, Al, it looks a little bit like soccer. You know, everything that unfolds you can watch, like here. Shot from the boards. JP takes a double hit in front, and then Eddie cleans up the rebound.
So it is 3-1 Islanders in the second period of Game 5. We'll have more of our retro broadcast from 1975 with Chico Resch. As you can see, another Islander great is here. That's Clark Gillies, and we'll get his memories of this great comeback in 1975 here in the vault after this. We're joined now in the vault by Islander great Clark Gillies, and this, of course, takes you back to the beginnings of your career, the beginnings of the Islanders and what they would become. What are the first things that come into your mind when you watch the beginnings of this unbelievable comeback?
You know, Al, it's we were just a bunch of young guys. We had accomplished a great feat already by beating the Rangers, which nobody gave us any hope of doing. And you know what? We went into the series against Pittsburgh, and it was kind of like, let's just go play and let the cards fall where they may. And we just went out there. The first 3 games we lost, of course, but we were in, I think, each and every one of those games. We were competing, and we just weren't getting, they say we weren't getting the right breaks, and the things didn't fall our way. But we were just having fun. I mean, from the youngest guys to the oldest guys, we were really enjoying the moment.
Billy Smith is taken out by Al Arbour, and Chico Resch is put in. Did that give some special energy to the team, or was that just a coaching move?
I think it was something Al thought might pick us up a little bit. So I think from a player's perspective, we were, confident that Chico could go in and do the job. So it wasn't like, oh God, now we don't have no chance because Chico's in there, because he was a good goaltender at the time.
Newspaper accounts really focus on the fact that the 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs were the only team to ever do what you guys were trying to do. Did that become a real rallying cry for the team, or was that just a media creation?
I think it was something that Al used with us. We all knew about it. It was very, well publicized. And the day before Game 4, we had a practice at Racket Rink out in Farmingdale, and Al, said that nobody's done it since the Leafs. And of course, we all asked if Al was on that team. And he said, he basically, at the end of his little speech to us, he said, if there's any of you guys here that don't think we can come back and win 4 straight, I want you to go off the ice, take your uniform off, and I don't want to see you again. Well, naturally, none of us left the ice, but I was, you kind of wonder, can you do it? And he kind of put the seed in our head, and you just play it one game at a time. You really can't look ahead farther than winning the one.
Very little video evidence exists of this. This is what we have. We have a little bit of Game 7, which we'll get to, but this is Game 5, and it's all about the Islanders coming of age and learning how to win. 3-1 third period, Islanders and Penguins, Game 5, 1975. And with the dreaded thought of having to go back to the Nassau Coliseum, Chico, you had to feel the Penguins were going to throw everything at you.
Well, we did, Alan, and we were still pretty nervous, unsure of ourselves here. But we knew if we could win this game, things would change dramatically. And, you know, Al Arbour really wanted us to play a tight defensive game, which we did. But we had some firepower. You see Eddie Westfall, and Ralph Stewart was a real good offensive player, and Jude Drouin and Parise. So, and then we had some toughness. This is a Clark Gillies going at it with
Colin Campbell.
Colin Campbell, he might have won that one. I'd have to give him that one on points.
And Jerry Hart and Vic Hatfield. Two very tough guys.
And you were mentioning a lot of hair there, Al. I think at that time it was legal to grab hair in a fight. They changed that rule shortly afterwards, but you could see why it'd be so tempting if you were in a scrap to grab the other guy's hair. Actually, Jerry Hart didn't fight much. He was tough, and neither did Vic Hatfield. And of course, that's Pierre LaRouche. A lot of Ranger fans would remember number 10. He's got the helmet on.
How about this? This is 4-on-4 hockey. Hart and Hatfield don't get penalties.
Oh, you had to earn a major in those days.
This is the New York Islanders, 3 years old. If you see number 15 out there, there was Billy Harris, the first draft pick. There was so much pressure on him. In comes Dennis Ochar, and that's Pierre LaRouche off the post, Chico.
Yeah, the big turning points, Al. They had a lot of posts. They missed some good chances. And I might have made a good save or two, but really, at this point, we were starting to feel the series turn. You talk about momentum today. It was the same back then. Goal posts, getting a big goal, a break in a hockey game. It just made both benches feel like things might be turning.
Chico, what are you doing back there?
We know that's not Marty Brodeur, for one thing. Little miscommunication, you might say. Here's a look at that goalpost.
Look how far out you are.
Oh boy, did we over-challenge, Al. That's what we were taught. And look at the crease. It was just that little rectangular crease. And the equipment. I mean, I wasn't very big to begin with, but I didn't cover much net, that's for sure.
Resch with the save, flips it to the corner. Tremendous pressure on the Islanders here in a third period, trying to force a game 6, trying to come back from down 3 games to none.
We had changed hotels just before this game as well, Al.
Was that a good luck thing?
Oh, yeah.
Nice pad save by Resch. And you can hear the expectant fans. Our editor, Dan Michener, takes what was a black and white tape and adds in all the sound you hear. Every whistle, every puck off the boards, every puck off the pipe.
And that was a penalty. They didn't call much, especially in the playoffs, but Davey Lewis does end up taking a hooking call on that partial breakaway.
Now, how powerful are your memories of this? Is it crystal clear or is it totally fuzzy?
Pretty clear. Pretty clear. Not the specifics. As I'm watching this, a few things come back and say, oh, I remember that moment. But it's the 7th game, Al, that I really etched in my mind.
Look at Dennis Potvin carry the puck all the way deep to the goal line.
Yeah, Denny could do just about, and I mean this both ways, he was allowed to do just about anything he wanted to, and he could do just about anything he wanted to offensively.
Jerry Hart with a big bang. Potvin calmly sends it the length of the ice.
That's Ron Stackhouse. He was a terrific defenseman as well. The Penguins won easily in their first round, and they were heavy favorites coming into this series as well.
Maybe a shorthanded chance here. Eddie Westfall, Lorne Henning, and he never got a shot off. But you can tell the intensity is picking up here as the Islanders try to seal the deal in the third period. Game 5, 1975 will continue. Clark Gillies remains with us here in the vault as we remember a great year in Islanders history.
There comes a time in every hockey series when the eyes change. The other team starts to show a little concern. They're a little worried. We're not in awe of them anymore. They can see that. And we're starting to see that they're starting to question, oh man, can't we put these guys away? and Pittsburgh couldn't.
Back with Islander legend Clark Gillies. So what about what Denny Potvin said? Could you sense in this series by maybe what the Penguins were saying about you or what they looked like on the ice that you had them a little bit?
Well, I think you really can see it. You know, they were, high flying, happy, as we like to say, all had Mr. Happy faces on when they had us down 3-0. And, when we got them back in our building and they had read the same things about Toronto, and I'm sure they had that in the back of their minds, and we can't let that happen to us. And from our perspective, we just kept playing and playing, as I said earlier, and the more we won, the more concerned they got with what we were doing. And, it just became that it went from, learning how to play Pittsburgh early in the series, and then finally got our game going a little bit, and that's how we were able to pull it off. But Game 7, if I can jump ahead, was a 1-0 game, and so we played them pretty even through most of that series.
So where did you draw your confidence from? From your inner belief? From Eddie Westfall? From Al Arbour?
I think that we were just, we just kind of believed in ourselves. It was like we got nothing to lose and everything to gain, and that's exactly the way we approached every game and every shift. It was that, you go out there, you work hard, and if something bad happens, don't let it bother you, because, you know what, just go out, enjoy yourself, and play the game that you know how to play.
It's always hard to seal the deal, but let's go back to Game 5 and see how the Islanders were able to pull it off. It is the third period in the third year of Islanders' existence. First appearance in the playoffs, and Eddie Westfall has to be relieved at how quickly this Islander franchise has grown under Al Arbour, their coach, and Bill Torrey, the architect. Billy Harris tries to flip one in front of Gary Innes. And Chico, I think it's amazing to point out, that the Islander fans were watching this game in great numbers, because when you got back to Game 6 at the Nassau Coliseum, what was the atmosphere like for you?
Oh, it was electric, Al. It started a little bit with the Rangers series, the series before this. And what really magnified it was, I don't know if you remember, but Derek Sanderson said, you know what, the Islanders will never win another game. And until the fourth game, it didn't look like we were going to.
Well, Lowell McDonald scores on Glenn Chico Resch to make it 3-2. There is belief in the world of the Penguins. The assist goes to Sil Apps. What happened on the goal?
Well, it's a pretty good pass. My stick, if you'll notice, my stick's there to deflect it, but it's a saucer pass. And then just a one-timer. The other interesting thing, Al, is there's not much celebration. Guys come together and tap each other, but it's not jumping against the glass. And
what did Jerry Hart just say to you? Do you remember?
Get the next one, would you please? Because right now it's 3-2, and remember, this is the deciding game in some ways.
Now, the one thing to remember about this is that the Toronto Maple Leafs, having been the only team to do what the Islanders did in 1975, was a big part of the conversation. Everyone was asking you guys, almost from the beginning, of being down 3-0.
Well, I remember the fourth game, the first one I played, Al, when we went to the Nassau Coliseum. There was a big banner, remember Leafs 1942. I didn't even know what they were talking about. But then it grew as the series went on.
What did you think? You were a basketball player trying to make that play?
Pretty good elevation, right, for a guy 5'8". I can't believe how active the goalies were.
I can't believe that I'm sitting here looking at that helmet that you wore that day.
Well, that helmet comes into play in Game 7, Al. I got to tell you, Lady Luck had come on our side during this series, but in Game 7, she also brought her two sisters, because in the first couple minutes of Game 7, I got two goalposts and one shot right between the eyes on this mask, and we kind of felt then, boy, things are going our way.
And thus you kissed the goalpost.
I did, and it was just spontaneous, but that goalpost, we saw a couple in this game as well, but the goalpost became a big factor because, yeah, I played well, but really we had a lot of luck. Guys played hard, and then the bounces of the puck on the goalpost maybe decided it as well. And here's a play that you don't see very often. Off the face-off, a breakaway. Andre St. Laurent can't get the shot away. Good back check by the veteran Vic Hatfield.
But wait, a breakaway off a face-off? And now the Penguins have to know that they need to get the puck down so they can get Gary Innes out of the net.
Now, Bert Marshall, like I said, terrific defensively. He was out there in all the key positions to preserve the win. And then this is going to be an interesting play here. It's going to go down in the Islanders' end. As you mentioned, Al, there goes Innes to get the puck, and as soon as they break up, he's going to be heading for the bench. But just want to let the folks know, when this puck goes into the corner, watch what happens here. Now, you talk about battling for the puck. The Islander, Jude Drouin, he gets knocked off the puck, but how well does that work out for him? He gets pushed behind the net. He gets the puck and whips it off the boards right into the open cage.
And that essentially clinches Game 6 will happen. Fans throwing things on the ice. On the replay, Chico, watch the linesman leap out of the way. There's no guarantee that this happens.
Oh, no, there you see him going airborne. And the Penguins had funny boards, Al. When you'd rip it around the boards, it would come off this way rather than go straight up the boards. And whether Jude knew that or not, he executed it perfectly.
Vic Hatfield with the puck in the final seconds of what's about to become a 4-2 Islander win in Game 5. The boos were just getting started at the Igloo because the Islanders won 4-1 in Game 6. When we come back, Game 7, the 1 minute, 8 seconds of it that remains. Still with Clark Gillies. Now, that's only Game 5. But when Jude Drouin gets an empty net goal like that, are you starting to think that, hey, maybe this is going to happen for us?
Well, it really started to feel real at that point. You know, Jude, you watched him roll that thing around the boards, and it must have hit something in our end that caromed it into the middle. How that happened, I really don't know. But to have that go in, it kind of tells you that things are really starting to go your way. And at that point, when you talk about the look on the Pittsburgh Penguins' face when losing Game 4 in our building, that's okay. We're going back home. And now to lose Game 5, they go, holy cow! This team is not going to go away. They don't know that we should have beat them already, and we didn't. We didn't believe that, and so we just kept on chugging away, and good things started to happen.
How much fun is it to you to see these things, knowing that so little of it exists?
When I see this, I like to compare. Is it the game right now that much quicker? And I really have to admit, I think it is quicker now than it used to be back then. But we were having a good time, and the thing that I like most is the steel blades on all the skates.
Right.
You don't see that much anymore.
We don't think anything exists of Game 6, and what exists of Game 7 is just a few seconds, but it was the crucial seconds of Game 7. We'll have that when we continue, and we'll wrap things up with Islander great Clark Gillies in the vault. Back in the vault with Clark Gillies. So nothing exists of Game 6. Let's look at that photograph for a moment and talk about Chico Resch and what he does to help get you guys even in the series with that little body and a lot of net showing there compared to today.
Chico was not very big, that's for sure. And as they said, when he was crouched over in his stance, he probably could have shot it over his head into the net. But there is a lot of net available on those shots. But Chico was becoming a real, fan favorite at that point. The fans were going crazy for Chico, and he's the savior. And if it wasn't for Chico, we wouldn't be where we are. He's getting to the point where he's starting to take it all in, and he's kissing the goalposts after the victory and things of that nature. But the whole atmosphere was incredible. And
this is when you started selling out now. So this is now the beginning of a little bit of an Islander thing on Long Island. How could you sense when you went home or went to the deli or went any place that the Islanders were now a thing?
Well, most of the biggest part was when you got pulled over for speeding. They didn't give you a ticket. We were starting to be kind of a household name. People were enjoying the Islanders, and Ranger games back in those days weren't so much full of Ranger fans anymore. We've actually had a few Islander fans come to the games, but. It was a big turning point for our franchise, and I was, as a rookie, I was just happy as hell to be part of it.
Now, one of the hardest things to do in the Stanley Cup playoffs is nailed down a 1-0 victory, which is exactly what happened. Game 7, only seconds exist, but the best seconds of the game. Here's what we found. Chico, for some reason, this is in color. It's a scoreless game, third period, a little over 5 minutes to go, and you see it for the first time in a long time.
40 years almost, Alan. What a play. I don't remember the particulars until I see it unfold now. And what a play by Bert Marshall. We used to kid number 6, Bert Marshall, of the fact that he didn't have much offensive ability. His shot wouldn't have broken a thin pane of glass. But here he makes probably the offensive move of his life. He sets it up, fakes it, and there's Eddie Westfall. And how about this backhand, Al? He takes it, throws it right up short side under the crossbar, and what a celebration that was. There were still 5 minutes to go, but we were feeling pretty good at that time.
One of the defining plays of Eddie Westfall's time as an Islander. The captain comes through, and you celebrate a 1-0 Game 7 win, only the second time that's happened in NHL Stanley Cup history. Chico, thanks for making this a great retro broadcast.
Hey, thanks for whoever found these. This has been great.
In the next round, the Islanders would go down 3-0 again to the Flyers, come all the way back, and then lose Game 7. These are the only memories we have. What happened next is perfectly summed up with this photograph that includes J.P. Parisi and Billy Smith, of all people. But with the biggest smile on his face, Eddie Westfall, the captain of the New York Islanders, who was so glum just a few years before that, having been taken by the Islanders in the expansion draft. Clark, what did he teach you about eventually becoming the captain of a team?
Make sure there was plenty of beer in the backseat of the bus.
That sounds about right.
That was one of them.
That sounds about right.
Eddie was, pretty, jovial guy. He could, he handled the locker room pretty well. He was great at organizing parties to make sure the guys stayed close together. But he, Eddie works hard. You watch some of these movies, and I think he was very proud of the fact that, he'd come over from the Bruins, and to be able to take this young team, in its only third year of existence, to make the playoffs and then get to this point, which nobody gave us any thought of doing. But he was so proud, I know, to have scored that winning goal and led us into Philly the following series. So it was good to see him get that moment.
Thanks, Clark.
All right, thank you, Al.
The memories of Clark Gillies, the memories of some other people who remember 1975.
You're down 3-0. You figure you lose one more game, you're done. And we would, the players believed in themselves. We figured, well, look at what are we doing? Well, could we be down 3 games? We got to win at least something. So they got together and they won.
Very, very emotional, very thought-provoking time. It was an incredible year for a lot of people, and I think in the sport, it had only been done once before. You come back from down 3, and it's all about people.
We would like to thank Glenn Chico Resch, J.P. Parisi, Clark Gillies, and all the ex-Islanders who contributed to this episode of The Vault. Legendary coach Fred Shero is supposedly the first coach to tell his Philadelphia Flyers that if they won the Stanley Cup, they would walk together forever. Based upon the memories and the thoughts of J.P. Parisi, that 1975 Islanders team may not have won the Stanley Cup, but for what they achieved, they will also walk together forever. I'm Al Trautwig. Thanks for joining us on this edition of The Vault.
I think you have to pretty well attribute the whole thing to Al Arbour, who took a bunch of young guys who had a lot of talent, a lot of desire, and a lot of pride, and he just sort of channels it in the right direction. You can make mistakes being nervous, or you can make mistakes being confident, but I'm sure you're going to come out on top making mistakes being confident.